Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to give everybody a second to get connected and all settled in. So, in the meantime, I'm just going to share a quick poll with you guys. This poll is just going to ask you guys whether or not you're currently using transaction features in Neat. So, let us know when that poll pops up to your right. Just taking a look at the poll, looks like several people in the webinar already have or are already using transaction features. It's really fantastic. This webinar will be perfect for you guys. For those of you who said no, but you're interested, this is also a great webinar to see like the full potential and capabilities of the transaction features in Neat. So stay tuned so that you can see it all in action. I think that's enough time. We'll go ahead and we'll get started and, we can answer any questions for any stragglers coming in after now. So, for many of you here are familiar with me already because you've joined a webinar of mine in the past. For those of you who are not familiar with me, welcome. My name is Nicole. I'm the Director of Customer Success here at the Neat Company, and I have a couple customer success leads here helping me out today. So we have George, Melissa, and Tia in chat. They are going to be helping me answer all of your Neat related questions in chat. So as we go through today's webinar, if any questions pop up, go ahead and pop them in the chat box and they will get you an answer. And we might also answer your question live as well at some point in time, either throughout the webinar or at the end when we make time for some Q&A. So we're going to go ahead and get started. But as a quick reminder as we get started, I wanted to mention that Neat has three main feature sets. The feature sets are files features, transaction features, and invoicing features. And just so I'm sure that we're all on the same page, I do want to share my Neat account with you guys real quick so I can show you where each of those feature sets lives. So yes, so Neat has three feature sets: transactions that live in the Do My Books section, Organize My Files, which is our files section or files feature set, and lastly, invoicing, which is under Bill My Customers. So Neat really is, split into these three different feature sets. They can work separately or together as well. And today, our focus today is going to be on transactions in the Do My Books section. I think files is probably our most popular feature, which is why I'm clarifying we're going to be living in the transaction section today. Excuse me. Today's webinar is also a little bit more advanced, I would say. This webinar really kind of assumes that you already know a little bit about transactions, that you know how to connect your account to Neat for transaction streaming, and that you probably already have some transactions connected to Neat or streaming into Neat. Now, if you're more of a beginner with transactions, that's okay too. I definitely say stick around because, like I said, you'll get to see the full, kind of the full potential of what these transaction features offer you. But we do also have a transaction feature as well. I'm sorry, a beginner's transaction webinar as well, which is this one here. The webinar is called Automate Expense Management with Neat Transactions, and this is more of a beginner's level webinar where I go over the basics of transactions, an overview of all of the features, how files and transaction features are different and work together, along with the fact that I call out the key automation features that really make our transaction features and our automated insights plan stand out amongst some of the other feature sets that we have. Now, if you are joining this webinar and you don't already have access to transactions for whatever reason, I'm actually going to share a link with you guys right now. And this link is actually going to give you guys the ability to try transactions for free for 30 days. So if you're interested in, kind of going along with me through through this webinar, or you are interested in trying these features out, but you're not ready to upgrade to an automated insights plan, go ahead and click that link at the bottom left-hand corner that says opt me in for a free trial. This will give you access to a 30-day free trial of the transaction features. We also provide you with demo data as well. So if you trial these features, you don't have to connect an account to Neat for streaming. You can use our demo data instead so that you can play around with the section and see how it works and see if it will meet your needs. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and click that at the bottom left-hand corner. Now, in today's webinar, I am going to demonstrate these 4 main features for transactions: vendor and category mapping, transaction itemization or splitting, matching raw transactional data with source files in your file cabinet, and lastly, exporting transactions in a number of different ways through reports, CSV files, and other looks as well. So that's what we're going to be doing. So let's go ahead and hop into it. This is going to be very demonstration heavy. So from this point moving forward, I will not be sharing any slides. We're just going to stay in Neat and talk about all of these different features and answer any questions that you guys have about those features as well. So let me open up Neat again. The transaction feature set is really entirely driven by your connected accounts and the transactions that are streamed in from those accounts. And through transaction streaming, you can connect your bank, credit card, and any other financial transactions or accounts to Neat so that all your transactions from all of your different accounts are connected and viewable in one place. So the benefit to that in Neat is that you don't have to log into Wells Fargo to see your transactions list there, or to Bank of America then to see your transactions there, or your credit card to see your transactions there. With Neat, if you connect all of those accounts to Neat, you can see all of those transactions mixed together in this grid view, and you can slice and dice that data in different ways to really get a full picture of your finances. And I'm actually going to be showing you how beneficial it is to see all of your transactions in one place when we get into exporting transactions later on. So Neat will automatically pull in transaction details as they occur, providing you with up-to-date insights about your finances. So if I go out and I make a whole bunch of purchases today, within 24 hours, all of those transactions will be in Neat, as well with the raw descriptions that are coming directly from my financial institutions. So the same descriptions that you see for your transactions when you open up your bank account and look through your transactions are going to be the descriptions and the details that you see in Neat, and that'll all stream in automatically. Transaction features in Neat also include several automation features that help you to automate or streamline some of your financial management tasks. So, a best practice is logging in and taking a look at all of your files or all your transactions for a given period of time. And one of the features that really helps you with that is our vendor and category mapping feature, because it provides you with this ability to map vendors and categories so that your transactions will be automatically categorized with your preferred expense category. So just like in your file cabinet, in your Neat file cabinet, it's a best practice to categorize all of your files. It's also a best practice to categorize all your transactions, to apply a expense category to it. Through adding expense categories to your transactions, you can stay organized, and you can also learn valuable insights about your transaction data. And vendor mapping helps you with this step, like I said, by allowing you to assign specific categories to specific vendors. So then when any new transactions are streamed in with that matching vendor, your category here is automatically updated for you to your preferred and mapped expense category. So let's go through vendor mapping a little bit now. I'm going to show you how you can access it and how you can map categories and vendors together. Russell, yes. I don't know. I think you're referring to whether or not this is viewable in the mobile application. If that's your question, it is. All of this is viewable within the mobile application as well. I'm going to mention that later as well because it really helps you to streamline some of these other processes as well. Perfect. Yes, Russell. All of this is available in the mobile application. And if you guys take advantage of that 30-day free trial, you'll also be able to access those features in the mobile application during that trial period as well. So definitely recommend it. So how do you access vendor mapping? There's a couple ways you can access it. You can access it directly through a transaction. So this is a transaction that was streamed into Neat. This is the raw data that came from my financial institution. Now, this is a demo account that I'm using, and so the description is very simple. Your descriptions won't look like my description. Your description will have a lot more details in them. But for demonstration purposes, this is very simple. So you can access your categories and map your vendors through the transaction itself by clicking on the category dropdown and clicking this little edit button. When you click on the category dropdown, you can see the list of all of the available categories that you have enabled that you can select from. And if you click this little pencil icon, it opens up your categories. And as you can see, you can switch over to map vendors to start mapping your vendors to your categories. So categories and vendors are very connected in the transaction section of Neat. If you're not viewing a transaction, though, you can also access categories and mapping your vendors directly from the options here as well. If you click on your name up at the top right-hand corner, you can also access your vendors and categories through these two buttons here. So if I click my categories, I can access both of those things, back and forth. So the categories that you see in transactions are not the same categories that you'll see in your file cabinet, though there's nothing stopping you from recreating all of the same categories that are in your files in your transactions. I'm just clarifying that if you create categories in transactions, those categories won't flow through to your files. You'd have to create them in both spots. We provide you with this default list of parent categories and common categories. And we came up with this list of parent and common categories after speaking with dozens of experienced bookkeepers. They helped us to identify the top most commonly used expense categories when it comes to, categorizing expenses for both business and personal needs. But you can also add any custom categories that you want to this list as well. So if there's categories in your parent or common categories list that you don't see that you want, you can just go in and you can add a custom category, as many custom categories as you'd like. One thing you'll notice about categories in transactions is that the parent categories cannot be edited or changed in any way. And that is because these parent categories are really more like category buckets or like high-level category groups that help you organize your other common or custom categories. However, you'll notice you can activate and deactivate any common or custom categories you'd like simply by placing a check mark next to a category you want to activate or removing a check mark from a category that you no longer want to see in your category list when you click that My Categories dropdown. So you can, make changes to all the common and the custom categories. The parent categories you cannot change at this point. So that's what you have here in categories. Then you also have your vendors on the other side of things. And you can actually proactively add vendors to your vendor list and proactively map them to a category. This is helpful if maybe I made a purchase today for a vendor that I know is not already in my account. Before that transaction hits Neat, I could add that vendor and I could add or map a category for that vendor. So when that transaction streams in, it'll automatically categorize. So you can be proactive about adding vendors and mapping categories to those vendors as well. To map your vendors to categories, it's really, really simple. You would come into this map category section, and depending on what you're doing, if it's the first time you're mapping vendors, you might just want to go through your list of vendors and turn off vendors that you're not interested in tracking, and then go through the list and map categories to each of those vendors. So for example, I have this Bolero vendor, which is a bowling alley, is not mapped to a category currently. I can go in and I can click the select a category drop down, and I can, look through this list of categories that I have, or I could just type in the category that I want to find. So in this instant, I'm going to enter it in as a non-business entertainment expense. And you'll see need a saving that. And now, anytime that a new transaction from Bolero comes in, Neat will automatically update the category for Bolero to entertainment from general retail or any other category it thinks that might be associated with that vendor. So let me show you an example. For example, we have like this AMC, I have this AMC Theaters vendor here mapped to entertainment currently. Let's close my vendors and we'll open this Target receipt that I have. We're going to use this receipt a bunch today. Let's say, for example, right now we can see the vendor's Target and the category is general merchandise. If I change this to AMC Theaters, what's going to happen is immediately my category is going to update to entertainment. And that's because my AMC Theater vendor is mapped to the category entertainment. So anytime AMC Theater is detected as the vendor, that category will automatically update. And vice versa, if I were to change this back to Target, it's going to change this back to general merchandise because that is the expense category that I have mapped to my Target vendor. So as you can see, this is really helpful because, it is a best practice to log in weekly or monthly to check and update your expense categories so that you can have organized transactions and you can learn valuable insights about your expenses. By mapping categories to vendors, you can streamline that process, that review process each month, because you can feel confident that any vendors that are captured in our map will have the accurate category that you prefer for that transaction. And everybody categorizes things differently. So I might categorize Target as like general merchandise. Someone else might categorize it as home improvement or something else. So by mapping categories and vendors, you can get your preferred category. So I'm actually going to pause here real quick. This is a pretty straightforward feature. I'm just going to check to see if there are any specific questions that came in about this that I could potentially ask or answer. So Susan, where do I go to map a vendor to a category? Sure. Susan, to access vendor mapping, you can access it in two sections. From the transaction itself, if you click on the category dropdown and click edit here, you can, or the pencil icon, I'm sorry, this is the pencil icon here. You can then click the map vendors tab and start mapping vendors that way. Or an even easier way is to just click your name up at the top right hand corner, Susan, and then choose map vendors, and it'll take you right to that page. And you can, kind of go back and forth between, if you need to add more categories, you can, or create custom categories, you can, as you're mapping those vendors, which is why you can kind of, jump back and forth between your categories and vendors during this step. So that should answer your question. Like I said, pretty straightforward, but a really useful tool in helping you to streamline some of those expense management processes. So let's move on. Let's talk about the next feature I'm going to demonstrate for you, which is transaction itemization or transaction splitting, which is a very popular request and feature that we get asked about. So the splitting feature is really cool because it provides you the ability to split your transactions into multiple different expense categories or projects or clients, etc. By splitting your transactions either for yourself or for your business, you'll have incredibly detailed data on your expenses, which can help you take better control of your finances, save more money, and even like set yourself up for having stronger financial planning and growth down the line. So let's open up this target transaction. So one thing that you'll notice here is when I open this target transaction, I'm seeing this suggested match. We're going to talk about suggested matching in detail after we talk about splitting transactions. But we can see Neat is suggesting this match to me. So here is my raw transactional data, and this is the file that Neat is suggesting to me that I could connect or match to this transaction. And I'm going to use this so that I can split this transaction. I'm actually going to select this as my suggested match just so I can zoom in on this receipt a little bit more for you guys so you can see what I'm working on. So this target receipt, you can see is kind of split up into 4 main areas: apparel, grocery, home, and toys. So if you are in an instance where you want to split a transaction into different expense categories, maybe some of these purchases are business related, some of them are more personal related, and I want to split those out separately so that I have accurate reporting about where I'm spending my money and the types of expenses I'm spending my money on. You can use the split transaction feature. To do that, you have to open up the transaction you want to split, and then you'll just click split transaction here. And you can split a transaction up, as far as I know, as many times as you want. At this point, I don't think there's really any limit to how many times you can split a transaction. I'm actually going to split this transaction up into 4 different categories: apparel, grocery, home, and toys. And so how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to add a description for one of my splits. So I'll type in apparel. And I can change the category for this specifically. We'll choose like clothing and shoes since it's apparel related. And I did some of the calculations earlier, so I know exactly what the breakdowns are for all of these different things. But I know that on the apparel, I spent $45 specifically on apparel. I can also add additional details to this item, to this specific itemized transaction. So I can add like a specific customer or a specific project. Maybe we'll say transactions webinar on this one. I can maybe add a location here. I could even add some notes to this. And these notes and all these other details will be associated with this line item on this transaction. And then I can save. Whenever you split a transaction, Neat is going to do some validation for you and let you know that your transaction isn't balanced at this point because I've only accounted for $45 of the $251 total dollars I spent in this transaction. So before I'm able to exit out or even save this transaction, I have to finish balancing my transaction here. So the way that I'm able to do that is to account for the remaining balance. So in this instance, I'm going to add 3 more line items. You'll notice that as you add a line item, Neat is going to automatically calculate the amount for you with whatever the remaining balance is or remaining amount is on that transaction. And then you can just change that amount if you're adding more items or line items to a transaction. So now we're going to add one for grocery. And we're going to change the category for this to groceries as well. And I'm just typing in groceries because we have the search bar here. It makes it much easier than scrolling through all of those different categories. And then I know on groceries, I spent $6.34. We'll also mark this as personal. Maybe I'll add a different location to this one. And I can save this. We'll see my line item balance is still under. So I still have $200.64 that I need to account for in this transaction before I can save it. So I'm going to add another line item. You can see that amount automatically fills in for you, but I'm going to change that. So now we'll add home. And we'll say maybe this was home improvement. And I know that I spent $113.75 on home improvement. I'll also mark this as personal, and then we'll save. And now I have one line item left that I'm going to add. I could add, like I said, I could add as many line items as I want, as far as I know, to this transaction. But in this instance, I'm only adding one last one, which is for toys, which the remaining balance is $86.89. Neat knows that and calculates that for me. I can add a description for toys. Maybe I'll go in here and I'll say this was a gift, and I'll enter this in as categories gifts. I could add additional fields if I wanted to. Maybe I'll leave this one as not personal, say it's like business. Maybe I'll say the project is business A, and we can save. Now, at this point, my line items are all balanced. So each one of these amounts calculates and adds up to the total amount of the transaction. And the really cool thing is these line items will flow through to all of my reports, all of my CSV exports, and also to my grid as well, so that I can get, a clear picture of where I'm spending my money. So instead of, taking the full amount for this target receipt and labeling it general merchandise for the full $250 that I spent, I can split it into a bunch of different line items and get really detailed information about the actual different expense categories and amounts associated with this particular transaction. And when I close this, so we're going to close this now. Oh, let me save and continue. My transaction's now updated. And now when I see this target receipt here, we can actually see that the category, unlike the other ones that have just one category, this one actually has multiple categories. And when I hover over that, I can see all of the different categories that are associated with that specific transaction. And this is really great because this also allows me to effectively split receipts that are in my file cabinet, because I can matching source documents from my file cabinet, like this target receipt that's currently in my 2024 personal expenses folder, with the raw data from the transaction associated with this receipt. And then I can split the transaction, effectively allowing me to split the receipt as well. And like I said, all of those line itemizations will flow through to your reports. They flow through to this breakdown as well. So, like clothing and shoes, we can now see $45 is associated with the category clothing and shoes, because I associated $45 of that target transaction to that expense category. And those other expense categories would be in here as well. Like gifts for $86.89 is another one that I just added. So I'm going to pop over into Neat, or into the webinar, and just want to see what types of questions have come in about this. So I kind of think it's pretty straightforward, but let me see what types of questions that you guys might have. So Monique asks, if you need actual receipts for business tax purposes, how is linking a credit card or bank account beneficial if you are already scanning the receipts into the Neat cloud? I'm assuming you scanned this target receipt into your Neat account, correct? Exactly, Monique. So that's exactly what I did. I connected my bank account that's streaming in all the raw transactional data to Neat in my transaction section, and then I'm uploading my actual receipts to my file cabinet. And I uploaded this target receipt to my file cabinet and organized it in my 2024 personal expenses folder. The big benefit is that the transaction section of Neat offers more automated features, like the ability to itemize transactions, as I just showed, the ability to map vendors and categories, allowing you to streamline your monthly, file review process. So, for example, while you can totally track expenses within the file cabinet, it's through a little bit more of a manual process where you have, Neat will help pull key details off of your receipt for you, but you still need to go in there and make correct categorizations for it. At this point in time, there is no way to split files within the file section of Neat. It's only through transactions. And then, through the transaction section of Neat, you can do all of that stuff and you can automate all of those processes. Not to mention, the transaction section is always going to be up to date. There's no possibility for you to forget to upload a transaction because all of that raw transactional data automatically streams in from your connected financial accounts. So it also kind of acts as a way for you to check to make sure, okay, I have this transaction, but I don't have a matching source document for it. What did I do with that receipt? What did I do with that invoice? I never uploaded it to Neat. So it also kind of acts as a way for you to check and make sure that the files that you're uploading to Neat are also up to date. Another thing that I really love about transactions is I kind of feel like it can replace your file cabinet in some ways. For example, for my personal use, I primarily use the transaction section of Neat in order to inform my, my financial decisions. Like I was able to analyze my transactions for 2023 without having to do all the work of importing all of my receipts and categorizing them and filing them away. I was able to just stream all my transactions in from 2023 over the course of the year, and then very quickly run detailed reports on those expenses. And the big benefit is that the data that's coming in is coming directly from your financial institute. So it's all accurate. There's no, besides updating the expense category to your preferred category, which you can accomplish through vendor mapping, all of the data there is the descriptive data that's coming from your bank or financial institution. So there's no need for you to go in and make any real changes to a transaction necessarily. I hope that answers your question. All right, so let's talk about transaction matching. That's a big one. So to get into this, I first want to quickly talk about the status and the matched column here in the transaction grid. So these two columns, status and matched, are directly connected with your transaction reviewed or reconciliation status. So Neat gives you this ability, as I've mentioned many times now, to match your raw data from your transactions with the matching source documents from your Neat file cabinet through a feature called Suggested Transaction Matching. And matching a source document to your transactions effectively allows you to reconcile your transactions each month. The matched column here indicates which transactions have been matched to a source document. So I can see these first 3 transactions have already been matched to a source document. And I can actually even preview the image associated with my transaction just by clicking on that image icon. So I can see this target receipt is matched to that target transaction. I can even download this image directly from here. I could open this up in a new browser if I needed to as well. So you can quickly view the image associated with your transaction by clicking this image icon. The status icon indicates which transactions you have marked as reviewed or reconciled, that you feel confident is has the correct category, is itemized if needed to be, and has some sort of source document. When you open a transaction that is matched to a source document, you can see details about the source document. You can see, well, first off, you can see the actual source document itself, and you can interact with it. I can minimize it, zoom in on it. I can highlight text directly from here as well if I needed to, and copy those things into my notes. And I can also see exactly where my transaction lives within my file cabinet as well. When you open up a transaction that doesn't have a match associated with it, that's where Neat is going to start suggesting matches to you. Like, for example, this UPS store. So what Neat is doing is Neat is searching through my file cabinet, and it's looking for a vendor that matches, a date that matches, and an amount that matches. And any ones that are similar or around this date are going to show up here in my suggested matches. Now I can see the data that's associated with this file in my file cabinet. Now, as I mentioned, sometimes Neat is going to present you with more than one option. And that's because, maybe you have a bunch of very similar receipts over the course of a few days. If you're someone like me who goes to Wawa practically every day for some like coffee and something to eat. I have like every day, single day, like a Wawa receipt. And so I might see a couple suggested Wawa receipt matches because they're all within the same, around the same amount, around the same day, from the same vendor. And what I would do is I would just click through, you would have arrows here. I would just click through all of those potential matches until I find the one that best represents it. If there is no source document for a file, you have the ability to either say like, yeah, there's no source document for this. And you can put a little check mark here that there is no source document. You can even add a comment in as to why there is no source document. Maybe you lost it, or maybe one isn't ready or something like that. You can add those details here. You can also search your cabinet for a matching transaction. So, if there wasn't a suggested match here, I could search my cabinet for this amount and find the matching receipt in my file cabinet that matches it. And you can actually also directly import or directly attach a file from your computer directly to the transaction also. So maybe this transaction's here, but you haven't uploaded the file yet to Neat. Monique, like, maybe you have all your transactions streamed in, you haven't uploaded all your files to the file cabinet. You can actually do that through the attach file process instead. So I could both upload my file to my file cabinet while attaching it to my transaction all in one go by using the attach option here. And it tells you're able to set which folder you want to store it in and everything directly from this modal. You can also remove a match as well, like I mentioned. So if I selected this as my match, you also have the remove match option. So I could just click remove match if this match is not the one that I want. Maybe I received a better copy of my source document. Like this one has a line through it. Maybe I got an updated copy that doesn't have a line through it. I can remove that match and then select the new source document that I want to actually add to this transaction. So once a category has been, once a transaction has been categorized, split if necessary into different expense categories, and matched to a matching source document, you can then go ahead and mark the transaction as reviewed. And marking the transaction as reviewed will make it so that transaction has, excuse me, this little matched icon here, indicating that it's been fully reviewed by you. It is a best practice to log into Neat weekly or monthly. It's something that we recommend doing to review your transactions, just like you would with your files. Going through all of your transactions, checking their categories. If you're using vendor mapping, that'll be super quick and easy to do. Itemizing your transaction if you need to, and then, uploading or matching source documents to your transactions. And we've actually built in a monthly review workflow that actually helps you with this and helps you go through the matching and reviewing process as quickly as possible. And this monthly review process is also available in the mobile application as well. So you can even do all of this stuff on the go when you have extra time. So let's talk about the monthly review section, which is here. So here's my dashboard. Neat buckets up all of your different months in they bucket up all of your different months, and each month is considered a period. Any period that has been completely reviewed gets the little complete status icon, and any ones that are in progress will have either a to do or an in progress status. We can see we're actually going to review the month of, let's actually do September. We're going to review the month of September together now. So I have 2 accounts that I've connected for monthly review, but I can actually go in and add other accounts that I have connected as well. Like maybe I want to add my credit card. I want to review that one this month. Maybe I have a loan account that I want to review this month. I could add those to this list here and include those in my monthly review progress or my monthly review process, but I don't have to. If I'm only interested in reviewing or reconciling certain accounts, I can just review those accounts specifically. For example, if you're using Neat for both business and personal, you may only need to reconcile your business transactions, but not your personal. And so you can choose which financial account you want to include in monthly review. We can see that my first checking account is fully reviewed. Now, there were no transactions associated with this one because I didn't upload any for this. So that was really easy to do for the month of September. But my second checking account has 24 total transactions, and 15 of them are still unreviewed. So the monthly review workflow tab buckets up all of your different transactions into different similar groups. So, for example, it buckets them up into suggested matches. So, all 9 of these transactions in my suggested matches bucket have matches suggested to them. So, I know when I start going through that bucket of things, Neat is going to suggest a match to me for every single one of those transactions. We also have a bucket for deposits and refunds and credits, and then a catch-all for all other unreviewed transactions. Typically, the ones that end up there are ones that maybe you matched but didn't actually mark as reviewed. And I think that's what all 6 of mine are like. Another thing that you'll see in the monthly review section is that you get some details about your period activity. So you can see details about money that went into your account, money that came out of your account, and what your net is. And then lastly, you can also see the reviewed percentage, or how much work left you have to do essentially to mark this particular financial account as reviewed. So let's go through these buckets. First, we have our suggested matches. So I'm going to click on the bucket, and all 9 of these transactions are going to have suggested matches. So what I recommend doing is first checking the category. I know that the category is accurate because I've mapped my Philly wireless vendor to telephone services. And so that was really simple and easy. I don't have any reason to split this transaction, so I don't need to do that. I can just select this as a match. Maybe if I wanted to, I could add additional fields to this if I needed to, like a project. Maybe we'll say like, I don't know, business A for this one. And I could even add notes to this if I wanted to. And then when I'm ready, I can mark this as reviewed. And it'll automatically move me to my next transaction. Here we have my next transaction. The category is accurate because I mapped that vendor to that category. So I don't have to do any work there. The total amounts are accurate because all of that data came in from my financial institution. I don't need to do any other work actually editing or inputting any data for this transaction. I can simply select my suggested match, which is accurate, and I can mark it as reviewed. And we'll move on to the next one. And as you can see, as I'm going through these, categories accurate. I don't need to split this one. This is the correct matching suggested match for this. And I can mark this as reviewed. And I'm just going to continue to kind of go through these. All of those details are correct. The category is correct. This is the proper receipt, which I can scroll down to the bottom and definitely make sure the amounts are the same and everything like that. And I can mark this as reviewed. Quickly going through the rest of these. I'll mark this one as reviewed as well. Now, this one is Venmo. Venmo is a little bit, you might not have a clear mapped category for every single vendor. Venmo is typically used for transactions between you and friends, or like, maybe purchases that you make out from like very small businesses or something like that. In this particular instance, I'm going to pay Jay for a bowling night that we did. So maybe I'll enter the category entertainment instead. And so this is why it's important to kind of go through all of your transactions, because even though all of my vendors are mapped to a category, there may be new vendors or some vendors that don't have a perfect mapped category. And so you'll have to go in and update that. But all of the other details are accurate. So I can select this and mark as reviewed. And we'll do this for the water company as well, which accurately reflects my utilities and my pharmacy details as well, and my auto insurance. So super quickly, I was able to just kind of go through all of those 9 transactions, match them to a source document, and mark them as reviewed. Now we're at 75% reviewed, and I only have 6 more transactions to review for this month till I can say September is fully reviewed and fully reconciled. I can open this up, and I believe I matched all of these transactions with matching source documents over the month of September at some point in time. I just never marked them as reviewed, so I can just go in and mark these ones as reviewed now. And same thing with this one. This is the match associated with it. Same with this one. I can mark this one as reviewed as well. So as you can see, it's like very quick to kind of go through all of these and just select matches and make sure the information is accurate, and mark this one as reviewed as well. So in as little and in less than 10 minutes, I was able to kind of, go through my remaining transactions, matching them and marking them as reviewed. And now my second checking account is 100% reviewed. And my month of September is now completely reconciled as well. I can confidently say I looked at all of the transactions for the month of September. I made sure their categories were accurate. I matched source documents to any ones that I could, and I marked them all as reviewed as well. So, that is what the monthly workflow basically allows you to do. And like I mentioned, it's also supported in our mobile app as well. So whenever you have free time, like you're standing in line or you're bored of social media, maybe you're going to the bathroom, you can spend a little time each week or each day matching your transactions. And then you don't have to wait until the end of the month or the end of the year and create this situation where now you have all this work to do to review all of your transactions. Just minutes a day could help you completely streamline and completely transform your expense management process every month or every year. Another thing is, monthly review is really great for like small business users, gig workers, or anybody who has like a legitimate need to reconcile their expenses for tax filing. It's also really fantastic for personal users who just want to be super organized and really like the ability to match raw transaction data with matching source documents, but it might not be for everybody. And actually, we not only do you not have to use the monthly review um, uh, feature, if that's a little bit too much for you, you're really only interested in capturing your transactional data and maybe looking at insights and reporting, you don't have to do the monthly review process. It will not prevent you from using the other features within the transaction section of Neat. But you can also bulk mark transactions as reviewed as well. So say, for example, I have these 3 transactions here. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll select a few more here. I can select multiple transactions. I can click bulk edit and I can bulk mark them as reviewed as well. So, maybe if I had previously matched all of their files and I really just need to mark them as reviewed, or again, maybe I'm not interested in going through all of my files or something like that, I can just simply bulk mark all of them as reviewed, and all of those files will then automatically be updated with the reviewed status. And then I don't have to go through them all one by one. I could just do it all in bulk. So that also is an option. All right. So let's get into our very last thing here because we are right at the top of the hour. I didn't realize some of this stuff is going to be so long to get through, which is exporting transactions. So, like I mentioned earlier, because all of your financial accounts are being streamed into Neat, all of your financial transactions are in one place. You can actually see all the data from all of your different accounts without having to log into each individual one and get a statement for each. You can see everything all in this grid here. And the Neat allows you to use that data. There are a couple ways that you can use it. You can export your data out to a CSV file. So I can select all of my data and I can export it all to a CSV file. And I actually have an example of that here. So this is my transaction export that I ran earlier today, just to make this quick and easy. It provides me with all of the details about my files, so I can see the bank name associated with it, the account name associated with it, I can see the date of the transaction, the vendor, description, category, amount, sales tax, whether or not it's reviewed. And I can also see all of the line itemizations as well. So if I had split these transactions up a bunch of times, I could see all of the line itemizations for them as well. And you can also see like your notes for all of your transactions as well. So this CSV file, if you are really adequate with Excel, you might prefer to export all of your transactions to a CSV file so you can upload them to Excel or Google Sheets and then slice and dice that data however you need. So that's one way you can export your data out of Neat. Another way that you can do it is through two different types of reports. There's many reports for transactions, but there's two report types that I want to specifically call out because I think they're so beneficial. One is the expense report. And the reason I mention the expense report is because the expense report provides you with all of the things you need to provide a CPO or like an accountant for preparing your taxes. So for example, I can create an expense report by, we'll filter my report to this year. We'll click next step. I could enter a name for it, like November 2024. I'll sort it in my personal folder and we can create. What will happen now is Neat is going to work on generating my report. And I can actually show you an example of what this report would look like in my review or my report section. So I have, let's see. I have this expense report that I created earlier. And the reason I like the expense report so much is because it is going to provide you with the summary sheet of your expense categories associated with all your transactions. So I can see the total aggregated amounts of all of my auto insurance transactions. I can also see the total number of times that category appears within my report. I can see a grand total of those as well. I also get a line-by-line breakdown of all of the transactions included in my report as well, along with any comments or notes associated with each of the transactions. So I can see all of the details in a line-by-line breakdown. And then on top of that, you'll notice that each of the transactions is assigned a number, and that number corresponds to the image that's associated with that file. So if you've matched any source documents to your transactions, your expense report will include all of those images in the expense report as well, giving you a summary of your data, a line-by-line breakdown of all of the data in the report, and all of the images included in the report, providing you with pretty much everything you need to send over to like a CPA or accountant for them to get started on your taxes or to review your finances. So for example, I didn't have a file matched to the transactions 1 through 12, but I do have, this Burger King transaction is number 13, which corresponds with expense number 13 here and the matching source image associated with that transaction. So again, another benefit is that, you can all of the transactions are streamed into Neat with accurate data. You match the source document to it, and then you get all of that stuff in the expense report. The one last report that I did want to call out was the transaction detail report. And this transaction detail report allows you to take all the transactions from all of your different accounts and in a very similar way, kind of slice and dice that data and prepare it for a CSV export. So if you're only interested in certain data, maybe you're only interested in this year's data from a specific account, like maybe only my second checking account data is what I want to see. I can slice and dice this data and filter this data however I want. I can let it know that I want to include line items as well for itemization. And then I can export this out to a PDF file, a CSV file, or even email it directly to someone as well. And here's what an example of that would look like. So a transaction detail would show you something like this, where you would see your account name, date, vendor, description, category, and the amount associated with that particular transaction. And these are all my transactions for the year. So I get, not only that, I get a breakdown of all of the categories at the bottom as well associated with my transaction detail report. And also, Let me go back to this, share this tab also. And also you can kind of see the breakdown up here as well. So not only will you be able to see exactly how many transactions are included in the detail, but you can view the breakdown without even going through the export process of it. The other thing you'll notice is that each one of these transactions has a linkable amount. So I can click this link, let me just find like this one, and it'll take me to the transaction that I'm looking at, including the image that might be associated with it. So if I noticed on my transaction detail here that for some reason this Philly gas station was categorized with the wrong category, I can quickly access that transaction and change the category to a more appropriate category, or make any other changes that I might need to. So that is it. Those are all of the features and functionality that I wanted to show you guys today. I'm going to hop back over into our webinar tool now, see if I can answer any more questions. I am just going to remind you guys about that, the trial. If you're interested in trialing these features, let us know. And we can put you on a free trial for the next 30 days and you can give everything a shot. Again, we also offer demo data, so you don't have to connect your accounts. If you're weary about that, you can use our demo data instead to get a feel for whether or not this is something that's going to meet your needs. Let's see what kind of other questions that I can quickly answer. So like Monique asked, what is the additional yearly monthly cost associated with the transaction component of Neat? So it depends on what you're currently on. If you're on our Neat base plan, then for an additional $150 per year, you can also get the transaction features. The transaction features are included in our Neat plus automated insights plan. It's the plan that includes access to all of the features available in Neat. So you get access to everything with automated features. So it's about $150 extra a year. I think that equals, I'm not sure how much that equals, maybe like $9 to $12 per month extra. And like I said, if you aren't sure if that's something you want to do just yet, trial it. Give it a try. See if you like it. See if it meets your needs. If it makes things easy for you. And, if it does, then we can set you up on that plan later. I'm going to answer one more question. I'm going to share a quick survey with you guys then, and then we'll wrap up for the day. So Ronald asks a great question. It seems that the reports are the same as those provided from the file module. Is that accurate? And yeah, Ronald, a lot of the reports that are available in transactions are the same reports that are included in the file cabinet. So there are, the file cabinet has these 5 reports here. Transactions includes most of those, but it also includes the transaction detail report, a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, and a cash flow statement. And these are the profit and loss, balance sheet, and the cash flow statement are very simple versions of those things. Very simple P&L statement, very simple balance sheet, very simple cash flow statement. So if you just need, if you're using Neat for very simple, bookkeeping reconciliation needs, those will probably meet your needs too in terms of analyzing your profit and loss or using a balance sheet as well. So there are a few more report types that are available in transactions than there are within the file cabinet. So I hope that helps. All right, so that brings us to the end of our webinar today. I'm going to share one last thing with you guys. It's just a quick survey. We do this at the end of every one of our webinars. It just gives you guys an opportunity to give us feedback on how you feel this webinar went. Did you learn anything? Is there something else that you want us to cover in a webinar topic? We have over a dozen different webinar topics that are available now on demand on our webinar library. You can access that by going to neat.com/webinars and access most of our recordings on demand. But if there's anything that we haven't done that you're interested in seeing, please let us know in the survey. And again, you can provide any other feedback that you have for us. Those survey responses really help us to just create better webinars. So any information you can provide or any feedback you can provide is incredibly helpful. That will be it for the day. I greatly appreciate you guys connecting with me, joining me for this hour. I hope that you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and we will see you guys soon. Thank you so much.